Hello everybody, Cal Banyan here, Cal Banyan's Hypnosis, etc. And guess what? I've got our very special guest back once again, one of the smartest men in the profession, Dr. Reverend Scot Giles. I've got to read through real quick just so you, in case you weren't with us last episode, to give you an appreciation for who this individual is. Scot is a board-certified chaplain and certified instructor with the National Guild of Hypnotists. His hospital-affiliated, that means the hospital actually will say, yeah, he's affiliated with us. Hospital-affiliated practice focuses on medical hypnotism, and he is especially well known around the country for his work with cancer patients. He's been the affiliated community minister at Countryside Church, Unitarian Universalist in Palatine, Illinois since 1991. Scot is a member of the advisory board of the National Guild of Hypnotists, where he carries the legislation and governmental concerns portfolio. He's really, I think of him as our legal liaison with the government and other organizations like AMA, APA, and that kind of thing. In 2006, the certification board of the National Guild of Hypnotists elevated him to the status of board certified diplomate. Including Scot, there's only 20 diplomates of the National Guild of Hypnotists in the world. I'm proud to also be one of those. He is a member of the Order of Braid, International Society of Hypnotism, and I believe he was among the very first to be entered into that special honor society. Scot is an award-winning second-degree black belt, so he's not all brains. He's got some brawn going there too. Award-winning second-degree black belt in Taekwondo Karate, and currently is studying as a swordsman in the Soul Sword tradition. And I'll tell you what, and he knows how to use a cane too, I can tell you that. Scot is a former professional chef. He lives in Wheaton, Illinois with his wife and cats, and rumor has it the cats are in charge. And I'll tell you what, if you want to know more about Scot after hearing this podcast, please go to csgiles, GILES.org, and he can fill you in on other stuff. How's it going, Scot?
It's going well, Cat. Hope it's going well for you too, Cal.
Hey, it's sunny in California. I'm going to get out of here, and I'm going to go ride my Harley.
Well, yeah, but you got a drought. We got floods here in Illinois, so we got all the water. We should ship it to you.
We'll take it.
And just so you know, there's no difference between a sword and a cane. They're used exactly the same way.
Ouch.
The sword cuts, the cane bounces, but everything else is the same. So most swordsmen carry canes when they want something with them, and I do too.
Cool.
Now, what are we talking about today?
Today, okay, so this is the second in our 4 episodes, and what we'll be talking about today is Complementary, the National Guild of Hypnotists Complementary Medical Hypnotism Program, and we'll salt and pepper that a little bit with some 5-path stuff while we're talking. So Scot, what the heck is this National Guild of Hypnotists Complementary Medical Hypnotism Program?
I started doing medical hypnosis 25 years ago, and so the Guild came to me about 15 years ago and said, we'd really like you to teach what you're doing, so could you put together a curriculum that would teach our students, our members, how to do the sorts of things that you do? So that was the origin of the curriculum, and that was version 1.0. Now, I often teach the curriculum in conjunction with a buddy of mine, Art Leidecker, a Guild-certified instructor, and Art has forgotten more about marketing than I know, so he teaches the section about once you've got the certification, how do you market it to the general public, and how do you market it to the medical environment? The rest of the curriculum I do, which is all the content stuff about how to do medical hypnotism. Now, we call it complementary medical hypnotism. And that's complementary in the sense of to make complete, because that's what we do. We are not in competition with the physicians and the other medical providers in a medical environment. We're there so that their work is made more effective. We're there to help people get that extra little bit of help that can make all the difference in the world between good outcome and bad outcome with a serious medical problem. But we're not doing the same thing they're doing. We're not trying to take their patients away. So we distinguish between alternative health care, which is what you do if you're doing instead of medicine, modern medicine, and complementary health care, which is what we do, which is to make the work received from the physician complete.
Now, I think that's a really good point to make, yeah.
Absolutely. And in fact, we often talk about, getting referrals and so on from healthcare providers. It's important that people realize that even if you got a referral from someone to work with a cancer patient or a heart patient or a diabetic or whatever, that the physician who made that referral is not delegating their medical license to you. Even if you have a referral, you're still not treating the disease. The referral is to work with issues related to the disease. For example, if a cancer patient is referred to me, and 70% of my clientele are cancer patients, I don't treat cancer. Only a licensed medical doctor can treat cancer. What I do is work with issues related to cancer. Sleeplessness, loss of appetite, pain, nausea, fatigue, all the issues that make the care received from the doctor more difficult. So by relieving the nausea and lowering the pain and improving the sleep and elevating the mood and increasing the appetite, the patient has a dramatically better experience and the outcomes are correspondingly improved. But I'm not practicing medicine. I'm not treating the cancer. I'm treating issues related to what the doctor is doing. That's completely legal. So if you think about it that way, we're here to make the work of the physician better. We're not
so many doctors, they're frustrated because they're not getting the results they want with purely medical approaches. Surgery, medicine, that kind of thing. And so we get to help make their work even better, because the person who is getting sleep, who is getting nutrition, is going to respond to medical treatment better. Is that right?
Absolutely. And the physicians, they're caring people. They want their patients to do well. And so when they discover a hypnotic practitioner who's good and is able to help their patients do better, you get a steady flow of clientele, which is how I've been in practice for 25 years now. Now, hypnotism is much more accepted in today's world than it was when I began more than 2 decades ago. When I began, it was like I was offering to practice, black magic. And people looked at it with a lot of skepticism. That's all gone now. The medical environment is really quite open. In fact, some hospitals maintain complementary medical centers where there's massage therapists, acupuncture, hypnosis, and other services available. So the opportunities are out there for hypnotic practitioners to really benefit by moving into this area, and I strongly recommend they do.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking about why, can you kind of just in a sentence or two say why hypnotists should be interested in what you're talking about?
Sure. Well, first, bear in mind that a person who comes to you for help with a medical problem has virtually no resistance. Now, there is a thing called secondary gain, which we may talk about later in these podcasts, but most people, they got a serious life-changing medical problem. They want to get better. So there's no resistance. They show up for their appointments. They come on time. They treat you well and with respect as a practitioner. They pay their bills. It is a very fulfilling kind of work to do that way because you don't get the kind of resistance or passive aggression that you sometimes do when working with smoking cessation, weight control, and so on. So there's that aspect. It is incredibly rewarding work, not just financially, but personally, spiritually. Like on my website, we have reviews from some of my clients. They're verified reviews using a third-party service. And I read those, and I'm just he saved my life. Well, I didn't really save their life. The doctor did, but I made it more effective. And that's just such a nice way to feel about yourself, that you did that for another person.
Well,
So it's a
I think
great market.
in the caring professions, I think we've got to move more towards this idea of a treatment team instead of this doctor is totally responsible. And as hypnotists, we can become part of that treatment team. Isn't that right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So we can take
The
credit
holistic
for
approach to
helping someone
healthcare.
along like that.
Say again?
So we can take credit. I mean, if a life is saved,
Absolutely.
it's not saved just by the doctor. It's saved by the efforts of the team working together with the patient, a client.
Absolutely. I think in most healthcare environments now, especially among the younger, more recently trained physicians, there's a new openness to the team approach, and understanding that a bunch of allied professionals bring a valuable service to the medical encounter. And in the course of my career, I've seen that happen. I went from when I was first trained, where the physician was absolutely God. That MD stood for medical deity, and you didn't challenge and you didn't offer, to a time now where they're quite open and want to hear what we have to say. And that's the model we have to get to.
And myself, coming from the psychological mental health background, we've always kind of worked in that you're going to have a psychiatrist, you're going to have a psychologist, you're going to have a social worker, and other help, maybe someone with a group home, all working together as a team. And so I just think that is a great way to go.
I think so too.
Cool. So
Okay.
tell me more
Well,
about how does someone learn to work in that kind of capacity?
Well, that's the reason we put the complementary medical certification program together. Now, it differs in some way from what a lot of hypnotic practitioners may already know. I mean, in the 5-path method, you rely a lot on age regression, which is an excellent hypnotic technique, and we use it too in our program, but not as much. It's not as strong a leg, and the reason for that has nothing to do with the hypnotic effectiveness of regression. Regression is extremely effective. What it has to do with is a legal problem that occurred some years ago in medicine. There was a series of psychiatrists and psychologists who were using age regression technology in a psychiatric setting to convince people that they had been abused by a worldwide cult of satanic practitioners called satanic ritual abuse. Rush Presbyterian Medical Center here in Chicago ended up where one of those people ended up paying the largest malpractice settlement in American history to the people who had been abused by one of those psychiatrists. So when you go to a hospital and you say, I want to do hypnosis with your patients, the first thing they do is they go to someone called a risk manager. And the job of the risk manager is to keep the hospital from getting sued. And so the risk manager brings up the history of hypnosis in healthcare, and this stuff comes up. So very often when you do move into a hospital environment, one of the requirements of the contract is going to be you can't do age regression. So we devised a program that accomplished its goal, making only modest use of regression. So that's an important thing. The other thing is a strong emphasis on physiology. Most hypnotists don't know how hypnotism works physically in the body. What is the neurophysiology that makes trance happen? What parts of the brain are involved? When we do suggestion, whether direct or indirect, how does that work in the human nervous system? What's happening with the nerve cells when you do that? So in our complementary medical certification, we include all that material. Because if you're going to be in the medical environment, you have to be able to explain yourself in scientific terms. On the other hand, there are a lot of techniques we use that are going to be very familiar to all the 5-pathers watching this podcast. Age progression, taking a person imaginatively into the future to image a good outcome. Very basic part of what we do in the medical environment, and your people, of course, use that too. Now, I mentioned secondary gain. Now, am I correct, Cal, that secondary gain and dealing with it is one of the legs of the five-path movement, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. The phase 5. Once you've gotten rid of, shall we say, primary gain or the cause of the problem through either direct suggestion, age regression, forgiveness work, and stuff like that. If the problem still continues, it's because a lot of people don't know what secondary gain is. We look at it as something in the present is either reinforcing or demanding that the symptom or problem continue. And so I designed a particular kind of parts work that is designed specifically to work with secondary gain. So correct.
And that's an important thing to do. Knowing how to deal with secondary gain is a vital part of practicing complementary medical hypnotism, because people, the human mind makes meaning, just like bone marrow makes blood. And if you throw something into a person's life, like a life-changing diagnosis, cancer, hepatitis C, or whatever, the mind is going to make a meaning out of that. The mind's going to find a way to use it. And so one of the things that can happen, a person may have a chronic pain disorder. They're also in a marriage where they don't like their partner, but they don't want to get out of the marriage for financial reasons or whatever. So the pain disorder, real, has a secondary benefit to them, which is that they don't have to have sex with the partner they don't like. So they're not going to give up that pain until they've solved the problem in the marriage. So being able to deal with that in a supportive and appropriate way is a vital part of helping people deal with especially chronic medical problems. And the other big, go ahead.
Something I think it's important to put out here is you're not saying that the person is faking the pain or purposefully at a conscious level generating the pain, but this is all happening subconscious, unconscious, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The person is in pain. The pain is real. It's just that the mind, the subconscious, deeper part of the mind, has learned to use that to meet some other goal. And that's a problem that the hypnotist can help resolve in a unique way.
Absolutely.
So that's and also, of course, we provide a clear system, and that's one of the strengths of the five-path too. It's a very clear, coherent system, and so if you're going to do medical hypnosis, you need to have a way of doing that in the medical environment that's equally clear. So we explain the medical model, how medical personnel think about what they do, and we train the hypnotic practitioner to be able to talk about what hypnotists do in a way that matches the medical model, so that there's understanding with the other members of the healthcare team. We teach people how to adapt other hypnotic material for medical purposes by adjusting imagery, adjusting metaphors, using restructurings or reframings and that sort of thing. And we teach a method of physiological measurement. Now, a lot of the people listening to this podcast are going to know about the eye roll developed by Drs. Herbert and David Spiegel, that the ability to close the eyelids down while looking up simultaneously. When you do that, there's a certain amount of sclera, the white part of the eye, that can be visible, and you can score that. That score turns out to correlate to a person's ability to experience trance depth. And it also gives you information about what their personality is like. This is called the AOD cluster hypothesis, now increasingly verified in the scientific and psychiatric community. So by teaching a person to hypnotize themselves using the eye roll induction, and we teach that in the class, you have the ability to know what your client is like as a person. But also we've discovered that certain medical cohorts, certain disease populations, with cancer, heart disease, and so on, tend to struggle with similar inner issues. And those inner issues match the eye roll score. So by using this measurable technique, and using that to gain insight on how to work with the client in terms of complementary medical hypnotism, you're doing something that's not that dissimilar to someone taking blood pressure or a pulse. It is a measurable phenomena, and it gives you information about what's happening inside that person's mind, and that's just huge. So we teach that too. And the other thing, convincers. We stress convincers. And you do too, if I recall, Cal.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I think you call people who don't do convincers hypno wimps. Is that correct?
That's right. Hypno wimps. That's right.
Well, you're right. I often think that the difference between successful hypnotists and unsuccessful hypnotists is that successful hypnotists use convincers and unsuccessful hypnotists don't. They're vital. And if you can't do convincers well, you're not going to get the buy-in from the patient, the belief factor that you can help them that lets the medical process happen.
Right. Here's the thing about convincers. Convincers deepen hypnosis. Convincers also take someone from a state of hopelessness into a state of hopefulness.
Absolutely.
And, we do a good pre-talk with people to remove fears, misconceptions about hypnosis. But there's one fear that almost every client or if you're a medical practitioner, patient comes in with, that no pre-talk can ever allay, and that is, they'll say, I know hypnosis is real, worked for my uncle, blah, 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 you're certified, you're capable of doing it, but they're afraid that they can't do it. And once you've successfully had them do a convincer, now that last fear is removed, and bam, you can do almost magical stuff with the client, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Cool.
So that's what the medical hypnosis program is like. I think your 5-pathers would find it a benefit, and I think all hypnotists would find it a benefit. And they'd also, I think, find that it's a good match for their 5-path training, and something they could add to their toolkit in a way that will make sense to them.
Yeah, we've got tons of 5-pathers that watch this, but we've also got people from around the world. And I don't have special guests on this program very often. I have the highest regard for Scott and what he teaches, and credentials. If no matter what you're doing, if you've got a practice that's mostly a sports practice, or mostly habits practice, or mostly a motivational type practice, when you can take what Scott learns and become affiliated with the medical profession, then that's one of the greatest credentials you can have for any kind of hypnosis work you do. Why don't you go ahead and wrap it up, Scott?
Well, that's basically it. I mean, this is a great thing to add to your practice. Now, it's not something for a beginner to do. If you're a beginner, you give yourself time to master the basics, let your style mature, then you use your continuing education to bring more complementary medical work in. But you may find that what will happen to you is what happened to me. I started doing that, and then I quickly found it took over my entire practice. It's a great way to be in the world.
Thank you very much, Scott. Real quick for everyone, and I'll have a link here on the notes for this podcast. Scott's going to be doing 3 different talks at the convention, 2 short ones, then a 2-day certification. The first one I'll talk about is how a consulting hypnotist can design a practice in complementary medical hypnotism, have a practice that results in a 6-figure income using referrals. That's Friday. And then ethical and legal issues for the consulting hypnotist, where we stand with legislation around the country. This is for everybody in the profession. It's a free 2-hour program on Saturday. And then the biggie, the National Guild of Hypnotists certification course in complementary medical hypnotism. That's post-convention. It's on at the same time as my age regression certification course. That's Monday and Tuesday. All right. Thank you very much, Scott. I got to wrap it up. And you folks who are wondering when my next certification course is coming up, that is my NGH-approved Banyan Hypnosis Hypnotherapy Super Certification course. It's 10 days here in Tustin, California. The next one is in October. Just check out here on the website on calbanyan.com for my schedule in case that has passed when you're watching this video. That's it. Cal Banyan signing off. This
This recording is the property of Cal Banyan and the Banyan Hypnosis Center for Training and Services, Incorporated. All rights reserved, for private use only, may not be duplicated without permission. For contact information, go to www.hypnosiscenter.com.